Hey guys, tonight we begin our descent into the itchy, drafty, and deeply undercooked world of medieval peasant life. You are not royalty. You are not a noble. You are not even someone with clean socks. You are a peasant, and your alarm clock is a very angry chicken. You wake up before sunrise, not because you're ambitious, but because your hay-stuffed straw mattress offers about as much comfort as sleeping on a bag of rocks. Cold air leaks through every wooden gap in the wall. Your feet are numb. There is no snooze button, unless you count stuffing hay in your ears and praying the rooster chokes. The floor beneath you is dirt. Not metaphorically, literal, honest-to-goodness dirt. It's packed hard from years of foot traffic, and last night's fire barely warmed anything beyond the immediate hearthstone. You sniff. That's not firewood. That's cow. Because yes, the cow sleeps inside too. She's your most valuable possession, and also kind of your roommate. You groggily sit up, rubbing sleep from your eyes with hands that have never known softness. Your nails are blackened with soil, not nail polish. There's no mirror. You don't need one to know your hair looks like you combed it with a rake. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I love seeing how far these sleepy stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stretch, stand up, immediately regret it, because your back makes a sound like a tree branch snapping, and shuffle across the room to grab your wool tunic. It smells faintly of onions and strongly of lived-in. Laundry day was last Thursday of last month. Sunlight peeks through a single hole in the roof where thatch has fallen away. You mentally add it to the fix someday list. Right after, get more firewood, and don't starve. Your house, if you can call it that, is one large room, one fireplace, one bed, if lucky, maybe 2 stools, a table that wobbles more than a drunk monk. There are more cracks in the wall than wood, and most of your furniture was probably once part of a barn. And then there's the smell. It's not bad, exactly. It's just full. A ripe mixture of wet wool, dried herbs, livestock sweat, and the faint tang of moldy hay. Scientists today might call it organic. You call it normal. Outside, the sounds of life are already stirring. Hooves clop down muddy paths. Chickens scream existentially, and someone's baby is crying because someone's baby is always crying. You step out and immediately into ankle-deep mud. Your only shoes are wooden clogs. Functional, yes. Stylish, only if you're a turnip. A neighbor waves, probably named something like Edric or Maud. Everyone's name sounds like a password from a fantasy video game. You nod in return, not because you like them, but because community is all you've got. Plus, they might lend you a turnip later. You trudge to the well. It's already got a line. And no, it's not a friendly morning gossip line. It's a line of people who smell like compost and will fight you for the last cleanish bucket. Water hauled. Face splashed. Sort of clean. Ready for breakfast. That's funny. You haven't even gotten through the day's first hunger pangs. Historians still argue whether the average peasant had a higher caloric intake than we think, or if chronic hunger was simply the baseline. Either way, your stomach feels like it's eating itself, and the only thing in your pantry is a single onion and something that may once have been cheese. It now has more fur than your cat. as you drag your aching limbs back home to gnaw that noble onion in the dim morning light, you can't help but reflect on the profound injustice of birth. A mile away, Lord Blusterface, or whatever his name is probably still snoring on a feather mattress with warm boots by the fire and a jug of mead waiting. You? You're lucky if the cow doesn't step on your foot before lunch. Oh, and speaking of feet, hope you didn't stub your toe this morning. Infection sets in fast. There's no urgent care here, just urgent prayer. You sit back on your rickety stool, take a bite of onion, and prepare for another day of wet boots, endless field work, and wildly unpredictable weather. If you think the rain might hold off today, you're wrong. It heard you thinking that. Still, somehow, despite the mud, the cold, and the fact that your blanket is just more clothing, you survive. You adapt. You exist. And that, in medieval times, is the closest thing to a superpower most peasants ever had. Your stomach's still groaning, but there's no time to linger, because the land doesn't care if you're hungry. The land needs you, or rather, your lord needs you to work his land. You tie up your tunic with a bit of fraying rope, shoulder your hoe, and head toward the fields like every morning for the last, 20 years or so. The walk to the fields isn't exactly scenic. It's more muddy. You pass thatched roofs sagging with age, fences that seem to exist purely for decoration since they keep nothing in or out, and a few of your fellow villagers already hard at work. You nod again. You always nod. It's the peasant version of a secret handshake. You arrive at the strip of land you've been assigned this season. It's not your land, of course. It's the Lord's, but you're graciously allowed to farm it in exchange for taxes, loyalty, your dignity, and most of your time on Earth. Your fingers grip the handle of the tool, probably the same one your grandfather used, or at least the same level of technology. A wooden plow, a rusty sickle, maybe a hoe that looks suspiciously like it was once part of a gate. You bend down, knees already groaning, and start digging into the soil. You dig, you rake, you hoe, you sow, and it's not glamorous. There are no sweeping musical montages, no grain blowing majestically in the wind. There is only sweat, sore wrists, and the looming threat of back spasms. Your hands are already covered in dirt, earth under every fingernail. You wipe your brow with your sleeve, which just adds a smudge of mud to the general canvas of filth already painting your face. You smell like effort. And onions, always the onions. By now, the sun is a little higher in the sky, though you wouldn't know the exact time, because clocks are expensive, and all you've got is a shadow and a vague sense of despair. You pause for a moment and straighten up, back cracking like a snapped branch, and glance around. A bird, a beetle. Someone across the field sneezing so hard it sounds like a goat's been kicked. That's the ambiance. You reach down into your pouch for a midday snack. It's a crust of bread so tough it could double as armor. You soften it with a splash of cold ale. Yes, ale. Because water is unreliable and ale is practically a vitamin in this era. Low alcohol, cloudy, warm, like someone soaked old barley in bath water. You lean on your hoe and let the sun hit your face. The one upside to fieldwork is, sometimes, the quiet. You can breathe, think, wonder if there's more to life than root vegetables, and hoping it doesn't hail. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants worked dawn to dusk every day or had more breaks than we imagine. Either way, your reality feels non-stop. There's always a weed to pull, a seed to sow, a cow to chase out of your plot. Always someone yelling about tools being borrowed without asking, or someone else's goat wandering where it shouldn't. Occasionally, you'll look up to see the reeve, the Lord's appointed overseer, staring at everyone like he's judging a turnip-growing contest where you're already in last place. The reeve doesn't plow, of course. He points. He scowls. He adjusts his belt unnecessarily. If you slack off, it's not a polite warning. It's a fine. Or worse, more work. It's a system designed to keep you moving, bent, tired, and obedient. Sometimes the weather joins in the bullying. A cloud appears, just one. But it's enough. Cold drizzle begins to fall like the sky is spitting on your already dreary day. You pull your hood up, which, to be clear, is just a piece of rough linen tied like an angry babushka. It doesn't help. It never helps. The rain mixes with the soil and makes everything 10 times heavier. The mud tugs at your feet like it wants to claim you. You keep moving. You don't complain. Because complaining is for people with choices. And just when you think you've hit your lowest moment, your left clog gets stuck. You yank your leg upward dramatically and are rewarded with one soggy sock and the distinct squelch of dignity lost forever. You now have to reach into ankle-deep slop to retrieve your shoe while a nearby child laughs, like this is peak comedy. Welcome to your day. By the time the sun starts to sink, your arms feel like they've been replaced with heavy sacks. Your back is now a question mark. You gather your tools, wiping them clean with grass, and begin the slow march back to the village. Everything aches, even your soul. But somehow, in this weird bone-deep exhaustion, there's something grounding. You did the work. You endured the weather, the reeve, the rats in your food pouch. You didn't get eaten by wolves today, or conscripted, or accused of witchcraft. That counts for something. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Because peasants don't retire. They just become legends told around the fire, usually while someone else is eating the last onion. You make it back to your hut just before the last light disappears behind the trees. It's not exactly a triumphant return. Your sock is still damp, your clogs are caked in mud, and a chicken may have gotten into your firewood pile again, but it's home, sort of. You push open the crooked wooden door, ducking instinctively to avoid the low beam that's nearly knocked you out 6 times this year. Inside, the air is thick with the comforting aroma of whatever someone tried to cook last night and never quite cleaned up. There's a smoky tang hanging in the rafters, and a hint of burnt turnip clinging to everything. Welcome back. You tug off your muddy clogs and leave them by the hearth, which is currently glowing with the faintest, laziest embers imaginable. You toss in a few damp sticks and blow on them like you're coaxing a very shy dragon to wake up. It flares. Then it sulks. Then it flares again. Victory. As the fire slowly catches, you peel off your overshirt and realize your skin is itching. Again. That's not a surprise. It's what happens when your entire wardrobe is made of scratchy wool and you sweat in it for 10 hours. No modern, moisture-wicking fabrics here. Just the sensation of wearing an angry carpet all day. Your underclothes? Also wool. And worse, rarely washed. Historians agree most peasants own 2 sets of clothing at most. One for everyday suffering and one for nice occasions, like church or being fined by the manor court. But here's the catch. Both outfits are made of the same stuff. Just one might have fewer holes. As you undress, shaking straw from your sleeves, you feel something scurry. You slap instinctively. Was that a flea? A louse? A spider with ambition? Either way, you've got company. Hygiene, in this era, is more of a philosophical debate than a reality. You do what many peasants do at the end of the day. Wash your face and feet in a basin that hasn't been emptied in 2 days and now smells faintly of regret. The water is cold, and your toes curl in protest. But at least it's something. The fire gives off just enough warmth to dry your socks, hung carefully on a stick above the flames, and you plop down onto the stool by the hearth, where the one-legged cat immediately jumps into your lap. You call him Stumpy. He doesn't purr. He growls like a small, fuzzy demon. Now, let's talk about your bed. It's not a bed in the sense you'd hope. It's a wooden frame with ropes for support, a mattress filled with straw, and a blanket that is technically just an old coat. You lie on it, knowing full well that a family of beetles probably lives inside. But the alternative is the floor, and you've already walked on that barefoot. Pass. The rest of the room is humble. A few cooking pots stacked in the corner, a rough wooden shelf holding dried herbs, and one very optimistic apple. There's a bench with a crack down the middle, and some poorly patched gaps in the wall stuffed with moss. It's insulation, if you believe hard enough. And then there's the air. Thick, smoky, earthy, like a sauna built inside a compost pile. You take a deep breath anyway, because that's just what breathing smells like here. You scratch your shoulder. That wool tunic again. It's basically medieval sandpaper. Historians still debate whether peasants preferred linen undergarments in summer months or just went without and accepted their fate. Either way, you're currently counting the number of times your shirt has betrayed you. It's a high number. Clothing isn't just uncomfortable, it's status. If your tunic is dyed, maybe a dull green or brown, you're doing okay. If it's undyed and colorless, you're one lost harvest away from begging. And shoes? Real leather ones? A luxury. Most people settle for wooden clogs or simply go barefoot. You think of your left foot, still wet, and sigh. At least your hair is, well, it's not lice-ridden. Yet. Probably. You run your fingers through it, coarse, oily, and tied back with a strip of fraying cloth. It's not a style. It's survival. You remember when someone in the village tried to braid theirs and ended up with a bird nesting in it? Once. Just once. There's no mirror, so you imagine yourself. Dirt-smudged face, wild eyebrows, a sunburn across your nose that never fully fades, and eyes that always look 10 minutes away from giving up. A perfect portrait of rustic charm. Someone knocks at the door, or, more likely, nudges it open with a sheep. It's your neighbor. She's holding a small sack. Inside? Lard. Because that's currency here. Bartering is the economic system of choice. And sometimes that means trading a single egg for a spoonful of rendered pig fat. Delicious. You thank her. She grunts. You grunt. The transaction is complete. As she leaves, you notice the smoke curling from her chimney and realize her fire is doing better than yours. You're a little jealous. You swear yours is judging you. Stumpy hisses at nothing in the corner. You assume it's either a rat, a ghost, or your own shadow. You don't check. Eventually, you slide into bed. The straw crinkles. A spider scuttles. You pull the blanket up to your chin and stare at the ceiling, where a family of moths is holding what looks like a dance recital. It's not luxury. It's not comfort. But it's your space. And in a world where privacy is rare and silence even rarer, that counts for a lot. The fire's down to embers now, casting soft flickers across the warped wood of the walls. Outside, the wind has picked up, and it whispers through the cracks in your hut with a moody hum, like the village itself is exhaling after a long, muddy day. You pull the blanket tighter, but it doesn't help much. It's not warm so much as it is present, a thick woolen mass that smells vaguely of wet dog and last winter's stew. You consider wrapping your feet in spare cloth, but remember, it's already in use, stuffed under the door to block the breeze. Now that you're horizontal, all your body's complaints file in like noisy villagers at court. Your knees creak, your back throbs, your elbows feel like someone filled them with gravel. You find yourself wondering if anyone in this village actually knows what it feels like to wake up rested. Probably not. But the real cherry on the discomfort sundae? The itching. Your tunic may be off, but its memory lingers in the form of irritated skin, red blotches, and, let's be honest, probably a few friendly parasites. You scratch your forearm, then your shoulder, then that one spot on your back you can never quite reach. Welcome to medieval sleepwear. Nothing. Or if it's winter, everything. You wear all your clothes to bed, becoming a walking laundry pile just to stay alive through the frost. You roll over, wrapping your arms around a pillow that's really just a sack of grain you're borrowing for the night. Grain. Nature's ergonomic solution. And speaking of bedding, let's talk straw. In theory, it's dry and soft. In practice, it's pokey and alive. Every rustle under you might be a bug, or just a very crunchy leaf. Either way, you've accepted it. If it doesn't bite, it's part of the bed. Around you, the sounds of night begin to swell. A dog barking in the distance. The occasional shout from someone who definitely had too much ale at the tavern. A sheep bleating indignantly. Somewhere, a baby cries. Then another joins in. It's like a chorus of small, angry potatoes. But privacy? That's the real missing luxury here. Your home, like most peasants, is one single room. No walls, no partitions. If you live with family, and you do, everyone sleeps in the same space. You, your spouse, if you've got one, your children, your mother-in-law, a pig, maybe a cousin. No secrets, no silence. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants actually minded this lack of privacy, or whether the idea of personal space is a modern invention. But as you lie there, listening to someone snoring reach new operatic heights, you can't help but wish for just one tiny room of your own. A nook, a corner, a broom closet even. There's also the matter of bodily functions. You know, the awkward stuff. There's no bathroom, of course. Just a bucket, maybe. Or the designated spot outside, if you're fancy. And when nature calls at 2 a.m., you either brave the cold, the dark, and the mud, or hope your aim is good and your floor's already ruined. And let's not forget the smells. You've got sweat, old food, drying mud, damp animal fur, and the faint but ever-present tang of mildew. It's like a candle, if candles were trying to warn you about the plague. Still, the fire sputters gently. You curl up on your scratchy, shifting mattress and listen to the wind tapping softly at the shutters. And despite the discomfort, there's something about the rhythm of peasant life that starts to settle in your bones. Predictable in its own bruised way. Outside, the night deepens. You close your eyes, half wondering what tomorrow will bring. Probably more digging, more scratching. Maybe a chicken will finally lay an egg. That'd be nice. But before sleep takes you, there's one final indignity to endure. A distant sneeze from the other side of the hut. Then a cough. And then the whisper of your least favorite cousin asking, if that last onion was yours. You groan quietly and roll over, clutching your blanket like it owes you rent. Just another peaceful evening in medieval peasant paradise. Morning comes not with gentle light or soft bird song, but with a shriek from a rooster who clearly hates joy. You jolt awake, face buried in straw, your back stiff as a wagon axle, and your mouth tasting like last night's onion had ambitions of eternal life. There's no such thing as sleeping in. The sun is creeping over the thatched rooftops, and with it, the entire village begins to stir. People shuffle past your hut. Doors creak. Chickens squabble. Somewhere nearby, someone drops a pail and curses just loud enough to scare their own sheep. You sit up slowly, joints clicking like poorly oiled hinges, and rub the crust from your eyes. The fire's gone out completely. Again. You can't remember the last time it stayed lit past dawn, probably around the time you had 3 fingers that didn't hurt. Still half asleep, you reach for your clothes. They're exactly where you left them, cold, stiff, and deeply judgmental. You slip into your tunic, which still smells like damp wool and field sweat. Your hose, medieval leggings, not garden equipment, have a hole at the knee you've been meaning to patch since last fall. Instead, you tell yourself it adds character. You tiptoe outside, trying not to wake the pig. Yes, the pig lives here too. And yes, it has opinions about being disturbed before breakfast. You think about apologizing, but the pig has no sympathy for your blistered hands and your empty stomach. And here comes breakfast, a repeat performance of stale bread, possibly onion, and maybe, a bit of goat cheese if yesterday went well. Spoiler, it didn't. You chew thoughtfully, staring out over the muddy path that leads to the manor. Another day, another round of forced productivity. You trudge toward your work again, but this time you pass something that stops you in your tracks. A group of villagers gathered in the clearing, not for work, but for Sunday Mass. Ah, Sunday, the one day when you don't technically have to work. Instead, you get to sit on a cold stone bench in an unheated church while a priest drones in Latin about sins you definitely committed just by existing. A refreshing change of pace. You file into the church. It's dark, drafty, and smells faintly of wax and something unidentifiable. Possibly mildew, possibly wet dog. Your knees creak as you kneel on the stone floor, and you join the rest of the congregation in the ancient ritual of trying not to fall asleep during the sermon. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants were deeply devout or simply went along with religious life out of habit and necessity. Either way, here you are, hunched, cold, slightly itchy, and trying to look pious while also planning dinner in your head. The priest talks about humility, patience, charity. You wonder if charity includes the neighbor who accidentally borrowed your hoe 3 weeks ago and still hasn't given it back. Probably not. The service ends eventually. Outside, villagers greet one another with murmured blessings and long-suffering looks. It's less community bonding and more communal sighing. You join in, mostly for show. With Mass over, there's a strange stretch of hours before evening when you're not required to be plowing or planting, and it's too early to pretend you're asleep. This is your free time. And how do you use it? You sharpen tools. You patch holes in the roof. You check the pig for ticks. It's a thrilling life. Sometimes, if you're lucky, there might be storytelling by the fire, or singing, or the local wise woman muttering strange things about dreams, and herbs. It's not Netflix, but it's something. You remember being a child and thinking feast days were magical. Music, games, food that wasn't just turnips. But now, as an adult, you know better. Feast days are just regular days with slightly more noise, and the risk of someone accidentally setting their hair on fire. The church bell tolls, calling the village back to attention. You look up at the sky, gray, as always, and let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding. Sunday may be a day of rest, but it's not exactly restful. You head back toward your hut, passing other villagers doing the same. Some exchange tired smiles. Others don't bother. Everyone's got sore hands and someone else's borrowed bucket. The door creaks open, and you're back in your one-room haven of smells and scratches. You sit by the fire. You'll light it later, and consider the meaning of life while picking straw from your socks. Despite the routine, the discomfort, and the total lack of anything resembling comfort, you manage to feel something like peace. It's not luxury, but it's familiar, predictable, yours. Stumpy, the cat, hops onto your lap again. He brings with him the scent of mystery and possibly dead mouse. You don't mind. The fire crackles back to life, and you lean back against the wall, knowing that tomorrow you'll wake up to more mud, more aching, and another round of the same. But for now, there's warmth, there's quiet, there's the soft snore of a pig dreaming nearby. And somehow, that's enough. The next morning, you rise with the cold and with a yawn that cracks your jaw in 3 places. You stretch, which is really just a slow reactivation of all the body parts that stiffened overnight like drying clay. There's no coffee, no alarm clock, no rise and grind inspirational quote. Just frost on your windowsill and the gentle reminder that survival is a full-time job. Outside, the bell in the village square clangs once, just once. That's all it takes. Everyone knows what it means. It's Sunday. Again, which means no field work. But not rest either. No, today is for penance. You shuffle into your tunic, now slightly less itchy thanks to yesterday's smoke bath, and step into your clogs, which somehow absorbed even more moisture during the night. A cold toe bath to start the day. Delightful. The village chapel stands at the center of it all, a modest stone structure, roof perpetually sagging, with moss growing on one side like it's trying to escape. Its wooden door squeals as you push it open and step inside. It's freezing. You find a place on a long, hard bench next to people who look exactly like you, pale, tired, mildly damp. The scent inside the chapel is part candle wax, part wet wool, and part human. You close your eyes as the priest begins his sermon, again in Latin. You don't speak Latin. No one here does, except the priest, and maybe that one suspiciously quiet goat. And yet, you sit, because this isn't just about faith. It's about order, routine, your weekly check-in with the great beyond, even if it's mostly a lot of kneeling, muttering, and trying not to fall asleep while your legs go numb. Historians still argue whether medieval sermons actually reached the hearts of the peasants, or simply rolled over them like background noise. Some say they offered genuine spiritual guidance. Others say it was just another obligation, like taxes but with incense. Kneeling time. Your knees hit the stone like it owes them money. You wince, shift, try to find the one smooth spot on the floor. There isn't one. As you bow your head, you hear someone whisper a prayer for rain, someone else for their sick child, and someone else just for more cheese. You offer a silent request of your own. Better socks. or maybe just a week without itching. After what feels like an entire winter has passed, the priest finally raises his hands and dismisses the congregation. The bell tolls again. You stand, legs like jelly, and shuffle out with the crowd. But Sunday's not over. Not by a long shot. There's confession, of course. A short line forms behind the chapel. Some folks confess actual sins. Others make up small ones just to stay in practice. You consider admitting you stole your cousin's apple last week, but decide against it. He probably deserved it. Then there's the socializing, because after a week spent hunched over dirt, Sunday is also a chance to talk. You nod at neighbors, exchange news, mostly gossip. Who married who? Who's dying? Who claims they saw a fairy in the woods again? It's like a medieval soap opera, except everyone is in wool and nobody smiles. A few villagers gather for a makeshift market in the square. One is selling leeks. Another has hand-carved spoons. You notice a traveling merchant on the edge of the square selling ribbons, trinkets, and what he claims is genuine dragon bone. It's probably chicken, but still, it's shiny. Children play in the mud. Chickens peck at their feet, and someone starts playing a reed pipe nearby. The tune is cheerful in a minor key and ends abruptly when the pipe cracks mid-note. You wander to the edge of the square where old Tomlin is setting up a table. He's the village scribe and owns the only ink-stained fingers within 5 miles. He's also the only person you know who's seen a real book. You nod at him. He nods back. You say nothing. This is a deep intellectual conversation by medieval standards. Later, you return to your hut, not because you're tired, though you are, but because that's what you do. You poke the fire. You poke the pig. You poke your mattress to see if the straw's finally settled in. It hasn't. Evening falls slowly. The smell of onion stew drifts in from somewhere. You smile. It's not your stew, but it smells good, and that's enough for now. You chew on a bit of old bread and wonder if next Sunday will be warmer. You lie back on your straw mattress, Stumpy curled up beside you like a lump of snoring lint, and close your eyes. The chapel bells are still faintly ringing in your ears, or maybe it's just your headache echoing in rhythm. Either way, your soul is slightly cleaner, your back is slightly worse, and you manage to get through another Sunday without being fined for disrespecting a goose. That's what we call a win. Monday begins the way all peasant Mondays begin, with someone yelling. Not angrily, necessarily, just loudly. The village doesn't believe in quiet mornings. Someone's chasing a runaway pig. Someone else is arguing about whether it's their pig. The pigs don't care. They never do. You sit up slowly, brushing bits of straw from your cheek and sighing through chapped lips. Another week begins. Today, it's not the fields that call. It's the Lord's steward. A scroll arrived yesterday, probably brought by a boy with half a haircut and no shoes, announcing that all able villagers are to present themselves for levy duty and inventory, which is a very official way of saying, "Come pay your taxes, peasant." So you drag on your least moldy tunic and join the flow of miserable humanity, trudging toward the manor. The path is lined with deep mud ruts, horse droppings, and that one cat who judges everyone. You squint at the sun, already warm and bright. One of those rare, perfect days that'll be wasted, standing in line for a man in a big hat to demand half your turnips. The manor looms ahead. It's not a castle, not exactly, but compared to your hut, it's the Louvre. Stone walls, guard dogs that look well fed, and somewhere inside a nobleman whose greatest hardship last week was choosing which chair to nap in. You stand in line. Wait. Shift your weight. Wait some more. You talk to the person behind you about the weather. You talk to the person ahead of you about how much barley the steward will demand. You all pretend like you have a choice. Eventually, your name is called. Probably mispronounced, but close enough. You step forward and bow. Not deeply, just enough to signal that yes, you understand your role in the grand play of feudal submission. The steward eyes you over a ledger the size of a piglet. He mutters. He frowns. Then he gestures to your pouch. Time to pay. You offer what you can. Some dried beans, maybe a goose feather, a few eggs if the hens weren't feeling dramatic this week. It's not enough. It's never enough. Historians still debate how crippling feudal taxes truly were. Some argue they were predictable and fairish. Others insist they were crushing, arbitrary, and designed to keep you just this side of starvation. All you know is that your last good pair of socks was bartered away for wheat. The steward scribbles something, waves you off, and moves on to the next unfortunate soul. You don't get a receipt. You don't even get a thank you. On your way out, you pass the manor's kitchen window. Inside, you glimpse a roast bird spinning slowly over a spit. Your stomach makes a sound like a dying accordion. You look down at your pouch, now featherless and sad. Maybe you'll eat some grass tonight. For texture. You return to your village, shoulders heavier, stomach emptier. As you walk, you pass young boys playing with a hoop and stick, laughing like they'll never owe a pig tax in their lives. Just wait. At the well, two women argue over whose bucket was there first. At the bake oven, a man pulls out a loaf that's somehow both burned and raw. And in the distance, someone's shouting about that cursed goose again. Just another day. You find yourself wondering what life might be like with power. To be the one who collects the taxes instead of paying them. To own land. To eat meat more than once a month. To have a door that closes properly. But that's not your world. You were born to serve. To farm. To pay. To be ruled. And occasionally to dream. You shake off the thought. Dreams are nice, but they don't patch holes in roofs. You've got work to do. Again. Still, the idea lingers. Just a whisper. A tiny flame. Hope. You don't stray far from home if you're a medieval peasant. Why would you? The road is dangerous, the world is wide and wild, and frankly, you have things to do. Like not die. But today, the Reeve sends you and two others to fetch salt from the next village over. Salt is a precious commodity, essential for preserving food, flavoring your famously bland stew, and occasionally rubbing into wounds, both literal and emotional. So you set off with a small sack, a borrowed walking stick, and the cautious optimism of someone who hasn't been bitten by a dog in a few weeks. The path begins where the village ends, a rutted, muddy trail lined with hedges, sheep droppings, and nettles that will absolutely sting you, no matter how careful you are. It's not a road, so much as a suggestion. You're not alone. Your companions are Tomlin, the baker's nephew, and Agnes, the goat minder. Neither one is known for great conversation, but at least they don't snore like Stumpy the cat. The journey is just a few miles, but it feels longer. Every creak of a branch sounds like a bandit. Every rustle in the underbrush could be a wolf. You joke about it, lightly, but keep one hand on your stick just in case. Travel is not casual in your world. It's a risk. Historians still argue whether peasant travel was more common than we think, especially for markets and fairs. But they all agree on this. It wasn't safe. You've heard stories, highwaymen, wild dogs, even the occasional forest spirit, that locals swear is just old Gwen covered in moss and bad intentions. Midway through the journey, you pass a shrine by the roadside. It's a crooked cross nailed to a tree, surrounded by wilted flowers and wax strips. You bow your head. Not out of obligation, but out of superstition. Everyone knows the woods are full of eyes. You finally reach the other village. It looks exactly like yours. Slightly more chickens, slightly less shouting. You head straight for the salt merchant who operates out of what seems to be a storage hut and smells distinctly of pickled fish and burnt bread. You barter salt for eggs, salt for thread, salt for a weird figurine someone swore was lucky. The merchant takes his time, muttering and weighing every grain like it's gold dust. You finally get your share, wrap it tightly in cloth, and pray the goats don't sniff it out on the way home. On the return trip, the sun begins to dip behind the trees. The shadows stretch. The forest gets quieter, like it's holding its breath. Tomlin talks about his cousin who vanished on this road last spring. Agnes mutters something about never trusting a squirrel that stares too long. You laugh nervously, but you walk a little faster. And then, of course, it starts to rain. At first, it's a drizzle, then a steady patter, and finally, a full-on sideways assault. You pull your hood tight and huddle over the precious salt like it's a newborn. Mud sloshes up your legs. Your clogs are filled with water. A single leaf slaps you in the face with great personal offense. By the time you stumble back into the village, soaked, shivering, and smelling like a damp sheep, you've never been more grateful to see your crooked little hut. You hand off the salt, receive a grunted thanks, and get back exactly what you expected. Nothing. No coin, no warm stew, just slightly increased odds of surviving the winter. You peel off your cloak, soaked, stained, and basically just a sponge, and hang it by the fire. The pig snorts at you disapprovingly. You're too tired to respond. You sit by the hearth, pulling off one sodden sock at a time, and exhale. You've seen the world, or at least the part that smells like pickled fish. And while it's not glamorous, it's a reminder. Life outside the village exists. It's big, it's weird, and it mostly wants to rob you. You poke the fire, stare into it, and decide that maybe next time you'll let someone else fetch the salt. It starts with a sneeze. A sharp, wet, unmistakable sneeze from someone 3 huts down. Then a cough, then 2 more. By the end of the day, half of the village sounds like they're trying to play medieval bagpipes with their throats. You, naturally, start to feel it creeping in. That tightness in the chest. That little scratch in the throat. A heat behind the eyes. Fantastic. You're getting sick. And in the medieval world, that is never just a casual inconvenience. It's an invitation to meet your maker, probably via some coughing, bleeding, and a whole lot of terrible advice. You stay home from the fields, but not because anyone told you to. If you can stand, you work. If you can't, you lie very still and hope no one sits on you. Your neighbor brings over a cure made of mashed garlic, honey, and something that smells like regret. You try it. It doesn't help. It might actually make things worse. She nods sagely and says, "If it tastes bad, It's working. You attempt to rest on your straw bed, which is now somehow both scratchier and lumpier than usual. Your body aches like you've been trampled by a small, angry horse. You pile on extra layers, which does nothing. The chill creeps through anyway. The pig snorts at you from across the room as if to say, "You're not dying in here, right? That's my corner." Medicinal options are limited. Very limited. The local healer, old Morna, who once tried to banish a cold with boiled beetle shells, offers you a dried frog tied around your neck and tells you to avoid moist breezes. You thank her. You wear the frog. You're desperate. Historians still debate how effective medieval folk remedies truly were. Some had basis in herbal knowledge passed down through generations. Others were more symbolic. You, however, are in no state to argue. You'll try anything that doesn't involve leeches. But of course, someone suggests the leeches. You refuse, politely at first, then less politely. The leech guy walks away, muttering about how people today don't respect tradition. You sip hot water with dried mint. You chew on bark someone insists is sacred. You even let a chicken sit near you, because apparently its warming aura helps rebalance your humors. Nothing's helping. You lie there, bundled in every cloth you own, shivering and sweating at the same time. Perfectly medieval. The next day, the local priest stops by, not necessarily to offer last rites, but definitely just in case. He mutters some Latin, sprinkles a bit of holy water, and tells you to confess your sins in case you don't pull through. You confess to stealing your cousin's cheese 3 winters ago. He forgives you. You both agree it wasn't very good cheese anyway. You start to drift in and out of feverish sleep, slipping between weird dreams and waking moments where the rafters spin slightly. Stumpy, the cat, sleeps on your stomach, radiating warmth and smug superiority. You envy his immune system. It goes on like this for days. You sweat. You freeze. You mumble nonsense about dancing onions and floating bread. You hallucinate the Reeve doing a cartwheel. And then, one morning, you wake up, and you're just tired. Not dying, just tired. The fever's broken. Your chest is still tight, but you're not hallucinating anymore. The frog necklace falls off slightly chewed. The chicken has moved on. You blink at the ceiling and realize you might actually recover. You sit up slowly, wrapped in a blanket that now smells deeply of everything you've been through. You sip more mint water. You nibble a corner of bread. You cough, but just once. And when you step outside into the cool morning air, the village greets you not with fanfare, but with someone yelling about a missing goat and another person falling into the well again. Life, as always, goes on. You're back. Not exactly stronger, not exactly wiser, but alive. And in the medieval world, that's saying something. You're barely back on your feet when something truly medieval happens. You catch feelings. It starts innocently enough. A glance at the well, a smile during church. Maybe a shared piece of bread that wasn't moldy. In the world of peasants, that's romance at its peak. The object of your affection, probably named something like Alfreda, Wulfric, or maybe just that one with the nice teeth. There aren't many options. The village is small. You've known most people since you both fit in a butter churn. But somehow, this feels different. There's a flutter in your chest that isn't just indigestion. But how does a medieval peasant express love? Carefully, and probably in grunts. You might offer a flower, likely wilted, or carve a spoon. Or if you're really bold, help that person shovel manure. Nothing says I like you like sharing a shovel. Courtship customs in your world are simple and deeply awkward. You can't write poetry, you can't write at all, and your idea of a date is walking them home while carrying their firewood. But still, there's excitement in it. A reason to comb your hair, a reason to patch your tunic. Maybe even splash water on your face before going out. Historians still argue whether peasant marriages were arranged for practical reasons or based on affection. The truth, a bit of both. Marrying for love was rare, but not unheard of. More often, marriage meant combining resources, having children to help in the fields, and not dying alone in a drafty hut. Eventually, after weeks of vague smiling and emotional interpretive farming, the big day comes. You're getting married. The ceremony is not elaborate. There's no white dress, no doves, no gold rings. The priest says a few lines. People mumble Amen, and someone tosses a turnip for good luck. You hold hands. It's official. You're legally allowed to argue over stew and blame each other for lost chickens. The celebration? Modest. There's bread, maybe ale. Someone brings out a drum. Your cousin tries to dance and pulls something in his back. A neighbor gifts you a live goose, which immediately escapes. Classic. Then comes the wedding night, which is not exactly private. Remember, one-room house, walls made of hope. So your wedding night is more of a whispered conversation under a blanket while your uncle snores 3 feet away. You lie in bed beside your new spouse and realize this is it. This is love, medieval style. There's no privacy, no luxury, and definitely no spa honeymoon. But there's warmth, shared chores, and someone else to blame when the pig gets into the root cellar. As weeks pass, your lives merge seamlessly. You take turns fetching water. You share meals, arguments, and the blanket that never quite covers both of you. You bicker over firewood and laugh when someone farts in church. It's not romantic in the traditional sense, but it's yours. Eventually, there are children. 1, 2, 5. It's hard to keep track. They're born fast and loud, and they grow up even faster. The hut feels smaller every year. The bed feels like a crowded boat in a storm. And with children come new challenges. Lice, hunger, constant noise. You can't remember the last time you sat in silence. But when your child toddles over and hands you a muddy stick with a proud smile, you realize you wouldn't trade it for anything. Except maybe better shoes. Life as a married peasant isn't easy, but it's grounding. It's woven into the rhythm of seasons and chores. There are no romantic getaways, but there are shared jokes, silent glances, and the occasional stolen nap when the kids are outside throwing rocks at nothing. Sure, you're both perpetually tired, permanently itchy, and semi-feral. But there's comfort in the chaos, a kind of love that survives cold winters, crop failures, and bedtime in a room full of snoring relatives. And on nights when the fire's warm and the children are finally quiet, you sit together in the flickering light and remember that somehow, despite everything, you found each other in the mud and madness. Even if your spouse still hogs the blanket. Not every day is back-breaking labor and rain-soaked regret. Some days, if the stars align and the livestock cooperate, there's a feast. Now, feast is a generous word. It doesn't mean a 5-course banquet or a dessert trolley. It means someone got married, someone got blessed, or someone got miraculously not dead, and the village decides it's time to celebrate with what little they've got. This morning, the bell tolls twice, which means one thing. St. Alfwin's Day. No one remembers who St. Alfwin actually was. Possibly a monk who tamed a wolf. Possibly a cabbage enthusiast. Doesn't matter. He has a day, and that means you're getting turnip stew with herbs. The village green becomes the center of life. A makeshift canopy of cloth hangs from wooden posts. There's a long wooden table wobbling in the middle of it all, full of communal dishes. Breads, hard cheese, roasted onions, and the culinary highlight, mystery pies. Don't ask what's in them. Just chew carefully. You dress for the occasion. That means brushing the straw out of your best tunic, maybe tucking a sprig of rosemary into your belt to cover the usual barnyard perfume. Someone lends you a hat. It's a little moldy. That's fine. Molds festive now. As you arrive, the air buzzes with activity. Kids are shrieking with glee over a game involving sticks, stones, and a goat that is not supposed to be part of it. Old women are comparing bunions. The reeve is already slightly drunk and explaining crop rotation to a chicken. Then come the performances. A wandering bard appears. Nobody knows where he came from, but he's got a lute and 3 teeth, so he's probably qualified. He sings tales of noble knights, tragic princesses, and a talking cow named Bernald who no one questions. You clap politely and drop a crust of bread into his hat. He seems genuinely touched. Later, there's dancing, or something like dancing. It mostly involves hopping in circles, clapping, and not stepping on your neighbor's foot. A few brave souls attempt a spin. Someone falls into a barrel. It's the most exciting thing since the pig chased the mayor. Historians still debate the importance of peasant festivals. Some claim they were rare but vital, while others argue they occurred often enough to balance out the misery. Either way, days like this remind you that joy exists, even when it's boiled and served with leeks. The stew is served around midday, and you swear you've never tasted anything better. Sure, it's mostly turnips, but today they're seasoned. There's salt, there's garlic, there's even, wait, is that meat? You blink. You chew again. Yes, a shred of actual animal protein, likely from a chicken that died of natural causes. You savor every chewy, slightly gamey bite like it's royal cuisine. Nearby, a group starts a riddle contest. You lean in. The questions are simple, silly, and often end with a goose, no matter the prompt. Everyone laughs. Someone offers you a drink from a clay cup. You sip. It's ale, watery, warm, and vaguely nutty. Perfect. Evening falls and someone starts a fire in the middle of the square. Children toss herbs into it, pretending to cast spells. You watch as smoke curls into the sky, carrying with it the scent of thyme, ash, and celebration. There's a moment, right there by the fire, when you sit back on a log, cup in hand, belly full of stew, and think, maybe this isn't so bad. Sure, your life is dirt and sweat and itchy underthings. But today, just today, it's laughter and stories and that one old guy trying to juggle onions. You catch your spouse's eye across the square. They're holding a toddler in one arm and a slice of pie in the other. You raise your cup. They raise the pie. It's the closest thing you've ever had to a toast. The stars begin to blink awake overhead. Someone passes around a sweet, sticky cake that crumbles the moment you touch it. A nearby bard begins another tale, this one about a knight who falls in love with a fish. No one cares if it makes sense. It's funny. You laugh. You walk home a little slower than usual, feet sore from dancing, head pleasantly fuzzy. Your cloak smells like firewood. Your heart feels oddly light. Tomorrow, it'll rain again. The crops will need tending. The pig will get into something it shouldn't. But tonight, the sky is clear, your belly is full, and the last taste of honey cake still lingers on your tongue. The bell rings again, but this time it's not for a feast or a sermon. It's Manor Court Day. You groan before you even roll out of bed. Court days are long, tedious, and weirdly dramatic, considering they mostly involve accusations about pigs and property lines. Still, attendance is required. Unless you're bedridden or actively on fire, you go. You splash some water on your face, throw on your least offensive tunic, and join the trickle of villagers heading toward the open-air meeting space near the manor. Basically, a stump, a bench, and a lot of glaring. The Lord himself never attends. He's too busy hunting or counting his spoons. Instead, the steward presides over the proceedings, wearing a slightly ridiculous hat that signals he's important and possibly allergic to sunlight. He brings out a scroll, clears his throat, and begins. The first case? Oswin's goose wandered into Edric's barley again. Oswin insists it's a free-thinking goose. Edric claims it was a coordinated attack. Witnesses are called. The goose is silent. Judgment. Oswin owes 1 egg a week for the next month. Next, old Milda claims someone stole her fence. Not broke it, stole it. Board by board, everyone laughs until it's revealed that the thief used the wood to build a chicken coop, which has now mysteriously burned down. Justice is poetic and flammable. Then there's the classic land dispute. 2 brothers, 1 boundary, 0 memory of where the rock used to be. They argue, they pace. The steward squints at the parchment map like it holds secrets. Eventually, the verdict is to share the space and stop acting like children. They both nod. 10 minutes later, one of them kicks the other's turnip pile. You're called up next. It's about the pig again. Apparently, it wandered into the Reeves herb garden and ate something expensive. You try to defend the pig's honor, citing its well-known lack of direction and poor moral compass. The steward finds you a bundle of leeks. You grumble. The pig remains unapologetic. Historians still argue about the purpose manor courts served beyond legal matters. Many believe they were a form of controlled drama, a way for villagers to air grievances in a structured environment without resorting to pitchforks and sabotage. And frankly, you believe it. Manor court is peasant theater. Low stakes, high pettiness, always entertaining. As the cases roll on, the sun climbs higher. Someone faints from boredom. Someone else tries to sell meat pies to the crowd and is promptly fined for unsanctioned commerce. You consider buying one anyway, but remember what happened last time. 3 days of digestive regret. One case involves a man accused of singing too loudly at night. He tries to defend himself by demonstrating the song in question. The steward claps once, very slowly, and sentences him to silence after sundown. No one is sure how this will be enforced, but the man nods solemnly. By mid-afternoon, the court finally ends with a dramatic announcement. The village's public oven will be relined with fresh clay this week. Everyone applauds, mostly because they're desperate for lunch. You head home with your fine, your dignity slightly bruised, and a renewed appreciation for the absurd. Manor court may not be fair, but at least it's never dull. Back at your hut, you toss the leek bundle onto the table. Your spouse raises an eyebrow. You say, "It's for justice." They don't ask further. You sit by the fire, still chuckling at the image of Oswin's goose being cross-examined. Stumpy hops onto your lap, purring like he's proud you weren't publicly humiliated. You sip some weak ale and stare at the wall, which is slightly more crooked than you remember. Tomorrow, it's back to digging, planting, patching, and chasing your pig around. But today, you are part of the most exciting legal system turnips have ever known. And honestly, that's not nothing. Night has fallen again, and as the last ember in your hearth sighs out its smoky breath, you notice something odd. Your neighbor, Gwen, hanging a bundle of herbs upside down from her door while muttering under her breath. Not prayer, something else. You peer out from your doorway. She notices you, nods, then hurries back inside with the speed of someone who definitely didn't just ask a spirit for help warding off a headache. You don't think much of it until the next day, when Tomlin the baker shows up with red welts on his neck and insists he was cursed. Cursed, he says, for laughing at Gwen's dried rat on a string charm last week. Coincidence? Probably. But in your village, superstition spreads faster than the plague. You've grown up with it. Charms, chants, whispered tales of things best not named. The woods to the north are blessed, which everyone agrees means dangerous. The old well on the edge of the village is haunted by a drowned midwife, which also conveniently explains the weird gurgling sounds it makes at night. And of course, there's the fairy mound behind the Reeves' house. Children are told never to climb it, not because it's sacred, but because it collapses easily, and the Reeve doesn't want his onions trampled. Life in your village is ruled by more than lords and labor. It's governed by beliefs, passed down through generations like heirlooms and kitchen tools. You've got a pouch of dried rosemary to protect your dreams. You touch iron when you hear bad news. And you'd never, ever whistle after sundown. That's how you invite them in. Historians still argue about how much medieval peasants genuinely believed in these superstitions versus how much was social tradition, habit, or just something to explain the unexplainable. But when your bread goes moldy overnight or your cow refuses to give milk, you find yourself looking suspiciously at the tree with the crooked branch again. You've seen things yourself, or think you have. Strange lights in the mist, odd footprints near the chicken coop. Once, you swear the fire whispered your name. That might have been the fever, but still, better to toss a salt pinch into the corner and not ask questions. Then there are the cunning folk. Not priests, not quite witches. Somewhere in between. The healer with an eye for herbs and a talent for unsettlingly accurate predictions. You've visited her once or twice. She gave you a potion that smelled like pickled socks, but cured your cough in a day. You don't say her name out loud. No one does. Names have power. As the days pass, more oddities pop up. A dead crow on your doorstep. Ominous. A dream of teeth falling out. Very ominous. You mention it in passing to a neighbor. They gasp and immediately hand you a clove of garlic and a small iron nail to carry in your sleeve. You comply. Why risk it? Then there's the matter of Gwen's cat. Jet black, with one white paw, and a look like it's been to the underworld and back. It stares at you every morning from the fence post. You nod respectfully. It blinks once. A silent, mutually binding contract. At night, by firelight, you hear the stories again. Your spouse recalls the tale of the man who tried to steal from a traveling tinker and was cursed to hiccup beetles. Your eldest child insists there's a creature living in the thatch. You pretend not to believe them, but you do check the roof before bed. Even Stumpy, who's usually indifferent to all things, growls at certain corners of the hut some nights. You toss him a scrap and hope he's just imagining things. You light a bit of rosemary anyway. The truth is, the world is strange, and without science or reason or even a reliable candle, you need stories to explain the rustling in the trees, the sickness that comes without warning, the strange luck that saves your crops when your neighbors rot in the ground. You live by rhythm, by seasons, by folklore. You grow food, raise children, and avoid the fairy mound. And some nights, when the wind howls too loud or the shadows dance a little too long, you find yourself whispering a charm your grandmother once told you. Just in case. The sun creeps slowly over the thatched roofs, painting the village in sleepy gold. You step outside, arms stretched overhead, body cracking like old timber. The air is damp, the ground still soggy, but something feels different today. Lighter. You hear a bird, not a screeching chicken or complaining goose, but a proper songbird, trilling from the treetop like it's got good news. And for once, so do you. This morning, the gossip at the well isn't about goats misbehaving or stew going sour. It's about something big. A messenger came through, bringing word from the next shire. There's talk of the king reducing taxes, or outlawing pig fines, or maybe just wearing a very silly hat. The details are fuzzy, but the hope is real. You haul water with a bit more spring in your step. The sun's out, your tunic is only moderately itchy, and the reeve hasn't yelled at anyone yet. A good start. Back in the fields, you and your fellow villagers move together like a well-worn song. Tools thud against soil. Voices hum. Even the wind feels less judgmental. You notice things today, the way the soil smells after rain, the glint of dew on a cabbage leaf, the way your pig is trying to dig through the fence again. Your spouse waves from the far end of the plot, holding up a basket of actual edible carrots. You grin. You haven't had a carrot in weeks. Not one you didn't have to wrestle from a mouse. Lunch is humble. Stale bread, a sliver of cheese, and those glorious carrots. You eat sitting in the dirt, laughing at a joke that wouldn't make sense to anyone outside your hamlet. Something about turnip rot. Absolute comedy gold. Historians still debate whether peasants were truly as downtrodden as the history books suggest, or whether they found joy in their routines, in their bonds, in the very act of survival. Sitting here now, belly full, fingers dirty, watching a chicken attempt to climb a barrel, you think, yes, there's joy here. It's just quiet. Later, you help repair a fence with your neighbor, a man who once accused you of stealing his bucket. You didn't, probably, but now you pass nails back and forth like old friends. Your child runs by, chasing a stick as if it's treasure. You call out a warning, something about not falling into the stream. They ignore you, naturally. The day fades slowly, golden light stretching across the fields as if reluctant to leave. The evening is still. The hut is warm. Your spouse hums while preparing stew. Even the pig seems content, snoring softly near the fire. You sit back, stare at the ceiling, and think of how far you've come. From aching mornings and onion dinners to this quiet, full-bellied calm. You don't have riches, or books, or even privacy. But you have your people. You have your patch of soil. You have your stories. And somewhere deep inside you carry the soft flicker of a dream, not of castles or crowns, but of possibility. A better harvest, a dry roof, a life that, while never easy, might someday be just a little less hard. And for now, that's enough. So now, as the fire fades and the village slips into shadow, you lie back on your straw-stuffed mattress, arms tucked beneath your head, listening to the soft, rhythmic creak of the rafters above. The pig rustles once in its corner, settling into its usual snore. Stumpy curls up by your side, his purring like distant thunder in miniature. Your body aches, but it's the good kind, the ache that follows a day of work honestly done. Your hands are rough, your clothes are scratchy, but your heart is still beating, and your breath is steady. Another day survived, another day written quietly into the fabric of your little world. Outside, the stars begin to appear. 1, then 3, then a whole sky full of cold, watchful lights. No lanterns, no hum of machines, just the wind slipping past the shutters, and the faintest memory of a harvest song echoing somewhere deep in your bones. You think just for a moment of those who've gone, and those who will come after. The way lives stacked gently on top of one another, each one whispering stories into the dirt. You're a small part of something large, quiet, patient, endlessly turning. You close your eyes. The day is done. The world is still. Sleep now.
order.